There's only one question worth answering, and that is, why do strength-built dudes despise the Dex lovers? It all starts in one boring evening. A friend begs you to play this game that you heard so much about it being the toughest RPG in the world. At first you're reluctant, blabbering about how video games were made to have fun with, until your friend says those 5 important character building words to you. Shut up and get good, before handing the controller over. Okay, why not? Let's give it a try, see what's all this rant about. Fast forward to the next week, you now have dedicated your life to the Sunlight Covenant, seeking to rekindle the first flame, and you now know every cheesy inside joke like amazing chest ahead. Now comes the question, why does this happen? Why do we attach so much to Dark Souls as if our lives depend on it? Why a mere video game with the single purpose of having fun turns into something more than that? And finally, the only question that matters, as I said, why do the strength-built dudes despise the Dex lovers? Coming right up, but before that, I'm Old Soul and a friend of Soldier of Astora. He asked me to tell you that in this dark age, the best way to praise the sun is to subscribe to my channel. Soldier said it, not me. Now suit yourself. To answer this essential question, we need to ask another one. Why did we all fall in love with video games? Yes, it's entertaining, but so are movies. So is playing outside and touching grass. But you won't do that, do you? So why video games? Simple. To become someone else. To get away from our lives and enter another's. Doesn't matter how old. It's always easier to challenge the sun and defeat it, instead of paying your bills or talking to your crush. Or if you're that young, telling your mom you have wet your bed. Anyway, what I mean is, video game is an outlet to change your identity. It's like being trans, but for nerds. Now you might ask, doesn't this apply on all video games? What's so special about Dark Souls? For that, we need to discuss the best-selling novel of all time. Nope, not Harry Potter, not Lord of the Rings, and most definitely not Twilight. It's Don Quixote, a book by Miguel de Cervantes about a man who has such an extreme knight fantasy that one day he decides he is a knight. His old workhorse is a young steed. His frail neighbor Sancho Panza is his brave servant. In a complete state of delusion, he starts his journey to prove chivalry is not dead and keeps facing stupid incidents, yet in his own messed up fantasy, he sees each one as a breathtaking battle. I once heard that every man in his 20s will face an important question. Would he give up on his dreams, his fantasies and his friends to settle in a corner of the world with a woman's warmth? Or would he turn Don Quixote, forever living a fantasy? The modern boring life of work, eat and sleep has worn us out. There's a trend of young men wishing they were born 1,000 years sooner and became a knight. Do you see where I'm going with this? The choice of being a Don Quixote or letting the fantasy die was so hard for us that we denied the question. Instead, we channeled our fantasies in video games, living the knighthood life there. It's not about the lore, it's not about the bosses, it's about the gameplay. Dark Souls gameplay is the closest thing we can imagine to being an actual knight. For instance, in the beginning, you can never defeat 2 enemies simultaneously. You can't wield a heavy sword, nor a weapon that needs skill to use its attack. You own nothing and no one knows you. Every enemy you defeat can change your life. When you reach higher levels and can finally wield a great sword, it feels like you're the most badass person in the world. That chunk of iron is a badge of honor, telling people how much blood you spilled. That's not the case for a dexterity weapon. That's not the case for magic or intelligence. Of course that's a misunderstanding. Not all knights would wield heavy weaponry, but the visual impression makes us think they did. Let me ask you this. One of these guys can kill 1,000,000 people with one finger. The best the other can do is defeat the Pope. Would it help you to know which is which, to tell who looks more badass? Now you know why we all love holding the slowest weapon in the game. Why we find joy in losing hundreds of times. If it's gonna satisfy our Don Quixote inside, we go down dancing. I would be happy to hear your counterpoints in the comment section. If you enjoyed, hit the like button and subscribe, and until we meet again, don't you dare go hollow.